Hello. How's it going tonight? Is everybody having a good day? I hope. Prepper Trucking, it's good to see you up there. I got your emails today. I'll be talking about that a little bit later. I got to unpack them all and look at it a little more in depth there. But thank you very much. But it's been an interesting week for a lot of us. There's a lot going on this week, and there's some things that I really want to talk about here in this video. I want to talk a little bit about COVID. I want to talk a little bit about the impeachment, the wall, gun control, A416, and these coming armed protests that we're going to see. And this is some, pretty serious stuff that we're going to be talking about. These armed protests, they could actually entail a whole lot more than, what we may be expecting. But first, I wanted to touch on something I posted the other day or yesterday, I believe, that I had tested positive for COVID. And I did. I tested positive for it. For those that watched the live stream last week, or a couple of them last week, that I said I had a, sinus infection. And so I went to the doctor with the sinus infection, and, I went to have a COVID test because I had to have the COVID test before I could go back to my doctor. And the first place that tested it, they said, it was an urgent care facility, and they tested and they said that, it looks negative, but they sent me to the hospital for another test. So I went to the hospital and had a second test, and that second test come back positive. And they drew blood and all, and they're sending these results off to, find out, I guess, more about it. So I'll get some more results tomorrow on that. But, if I do have it, all I can say is, it really is surprising. I thought it was a sinus infection. Nothing much more severe than that. Yeah, felt a little bit rough for a couple of days, but as y'all know, I did 2 or 3 live casts last week, and I functioned properly. I did my job. I work online right now. We're all working from home, but it really was nowhere near as severe as anything that I would have expected. And today I feel pretty good. Felt pretty good yesterday. Even though I had the test yesterday and all that, I still felt pretty good. So one interesting thing that did happen though, and, we can take this however it goes or however you would like. But while I was at the hospital getting the second test and waiting on the results for it, I was talking to one of the paramedics there. And this paramedic was telling me how he thought, and this is someone that worked there, and I'm not going to say any names. I don't even really know his name, but I'm not going to, say that if I did. But he there was telling me that he thought it was really funny that the people that were coming in with symptoms for COVID were being sent home with negative results. And the people that were coming in without symptoms were the ones that were testing positive. And he felt like it was just basically opposite of what it should be. And it did sort of, look funny to me too. When I went to the urgent care facility, I was the only person there. When I was in the emergency room, this is a pretty crowded area. There's no one there. There were like 5 people in the entire emergency room, waiting room. And as we walked back to the room they were taking me to be examined, there was pretty much half the rooms there. I'd say at least half of the rooms were just empty. So, for these places to be overwhelmed with cases, I just didn't see it at this point in time. Don't want to, I can't really say anything more than that, but I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm doing pretty good. And, I feel pretty good. I don't really think it's anything that's going to affect me much worse than it was. I could see, I guess, if someone had underlying, some serious conditions. I did get a sinus infection. I was congested and coughing a good bit. But other than that, no fever, nothing like that. I guess I still got a few more days to, let it run its course. So what is it, 14 days or something like that? But so far, I feel good. So no, Grumpy, this is in Michigan. But a couple of things on that, talking about the coronavirus, while we're talking about that, is several states have opened up what's called vaccine mega sites. I don't know if you've heard about these, but vaccine mega site. And I'll give a list of the states that already have them here in use, and that's Arizona. They say Arizona has the highest COVID-19 diagnosis rate in the U.S., and they've opened up a mega vaccine site at State Farm Stadium. California is opening up several, including Los Angeles Dodgers Stadium for mega sites. Florida is using the Hard Rock Stadium. Kentucky is using its fairgrounds in Louisville. Michigan is turning Detroit's TCF Convention Center into a vaccine site. New York has opened several 24/7 distribution facilities. And New Jersey is using malls and its convention center in Philadelphia as vaccine megasites. And also Texas is using the Dallas County Fairgrounds and Minute Maid Park in Houston for its vaccination sites. So what we're starting to see is a lot of states are really starting to push this vaccine with the megasites, and it almost feels like it's getting close to some of the bills that we saw, like in like in New York, the A416. Now that bill is still in committee. It's sort of being hung up there in the health committee. It hasn't made it out for a vote yet. It does have a sponsor there, so it can go to a vote if it passes through their health committee. And the A416 bill, it's really interesting because I was reading some articles on it today, and there's Laura Ingraham, the Fox News caster, the Fox News person. She had a website up that got censored. It got fact checked for saying that this bill, the A416 bill, basically was putting people in detention camps. And two of the top fact checking companies, PolitiFact and Snopes, both hit it and said, oh, this is false. This is false. So I was wanting to see why they said it was false, because I've read the bill myself. And the reason they said it was false is, and this is where we got to be real careful with looking at these fact checks that they're throwing at us all the time saying stuff is false, is the reason they said that her article was false for saying that was because that bill never used the word camp. And that was their excuse. It never used the word camp. So just be careful with the fact checks. I mean, we know we're getting it all the time. PolitiFact, one of their largest donors is Facebook. So they're pretty much owned by Facebook. So they're doing whatever Facebook says. And it makes sense with all the censorship that we see going on Facebook right now. It's getting really crazy. Grumpy, I'm going to be starting another channel soon. I think a lot of people are in the same boat I am with the attacks on free speech that we see going on right now. I mean, we saw Parler get shut down. And get completely taken down. At first, they just stopped serving the app in the app stores and the Google store and all that. But now Amazon pulled the servers. So Parler has no servers. It can do absolutely nothing. They can't do anything. Without a server, you can't put a website up, because you have to have a server of some type to host your website there. But I do have my SeriousSurvivor.com site, and I'm going to try to start moving a lot of content to there and get some podcasts going. That's going to be a little more lengthy process, because I'll admit YouTube's pretty easy to use as far as doing a live cast and posting videos. And, the fact that it actually supposed to promote the videos and give people, when they search, give people the results and all that. It's a little harder to do on your own, but I'm working on doing that. All right. Now, there is one thing I'd like to say, though. The other bill that was going through New York I think it's sort of slowed down now. I think it's held up also, and that was the one dealing with the mandatory vaccines. I think it's 1119, A1119, and it's sort of slowed down, and it's not doing anything right now. But I'm going to give a big shout out to my state of South Carolina, because I'm going to read an article right here from the state of South Carolina that says a bill was pre-filed in the state of South Carolina, H3511, that would ban mandatory vaccines and prevent types of discrimination for not getting vaccinated. Now, I'm going to put this link right up here so y'all can check it out. Paste. All right, and there it goes. Now, the fact that a state puts a bill up for vote, it's not even it's not even there to be voted on yet. It's in the works. But the fact that these lawmakers take their time to put this bill up, to possibly be voted on, tells us right there that the possibility of mandatory vaccines is a real thing. It's not a conspiracy. It's a real thing. We see one bill trying to pass it in New York. We see another in South Carolina trying to stop it. So this is something we're going to have to face, and we're going to have to face it very quick. It's going to be coming up on us sooner than we think. Things are moving so fast right now. They're moving so fast. We really need to be prepared. When I say be prepared, I'm not saying we got to go out and start buying stuff right now. We need to already have a lot of this stuff. We need to start inventory. We need to start making sure that you're ready right now, because this is quite possibly this week and this next week and a half is going to be a turning point for this nation. All right. All right. Another thing I want to talk about. I wanted to talk a little bit about the COVID. I think for me, I'm going to be honest, and I'm not making light of anybody that's had it and been sick from it. I'm not, but I'm 50 years old. I'm not a picture of health. I'm not unhealthy, but I'm not running 20 miles a day and stuff like that. And for it to affect me as little as it did, just a cough pretty much and a sinus infection, it really sinks in now that just how drastic these measures they're taking against us are. These lockdowns they're taking, how drastic they are. I didn't need to be locked down to prevent from getting this disease. I would have rather had it a year ago and have an immunity build up to it, because it really didn't do much to me. Like I said, I never missed a beat. I kept working, kept doing everything I wanted to do. So this is after experiencing it, I can say that it's worse than we think, folks. Not the disease, but what they're doing. I mean, when they lock us down and tell us to stay home, that makes population control 100% easier, because they know where we're at, or at least they know where the majority of population is at all times. So it makes control of us that much easier with these lockdowns. It's going to be, we got some things coming up, and it's going to be really crazy. All right. The impeachments today. I wanted to talk a little bit about that too. As we speak, they're voting on a, let me pull it back up here. I just dropped it. Well, first of all, if they don't pass the resolution tonight, they're attempting to pass the resolution as we speak in the House to try to force Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Donald Trump from office, stating that he's unfit to hold office. Now, I'm going to say that this is probably not going to happen, and most people think it's not going to happen. So what that leads us to is a vote for the impeachment in the morning, and it's going to pass. It's going to go through the House. I don't think we doubt that any bit. A lot of House Republicans have already stated that they're going to vote for the impeachment, and there are some senators, Republican senators, that are also stating they're going to vote for the impeachment. Vote for the conviction if the impeachment reaches the Senate. Now, if 2/3 of the Senate votes to convict, then the president is removed from office. Now, once this happens, if that does happen, then the Senate can conduct another vote. And this second vote only requires a simple majority. And the second vote would be to bar or ban that convicted person from ever serving in public office again. So, I mean, that sounds to me like that's exactly what they're trying to do. And what we're seeing going on. I mean, we have seen over the last couple months, the same senators, the same Republicans that said they stood by us, that said they stood by Trump. They've literally turned their backs right now. They're literally, playing to the Democrats, because they don't want to lose their funding. They don't want to be banned from doing, business, I guess you would call it, on Twitter and Facebook and things like that. They're pandering to the Democrats at this point. And if they're pandering to the Democrats right now, what do you think is going to happen when all these new things that Biden's going to try to push through his first 100 days in office come before the House and the Senate? They're going to be pushed through, and we're going to be the ones suffering the consequences from this. And this is not something that, it's crazy that we're actually witnessing this in our lifetime, but we're seeing quite possibly the fall of America. And I hate to say it, the fall of America as we know it. Things are going to change this year. Hopefully they'll change for the better, but things are definitely going to change. Now, even if the Senate trial is not completed by the time that Biden is inaugurated, doesn't mean they can't continue that trial. You're right. Thank you, Guns. It doesn't mean they can't continue that trial, because they have the ability to continue that trial. That precedence was set back in, I believe it was 1876. Let me look. That precedence was set back in 1876 when the Secretary of War was impeached after he resigned from office. Now, he was not convicted in that particular one, but just the fact that it happened shows us it can happen again. And with a completely blue Senate, House, and White House, then basically anything can happen right now. Anything can happen, and it's we've all been in this country. We all love this country. We all love our families. We love our way of life, but we are seeing that. We are seeing that change right in front of us. We're seeing that change right in front of our eyes. Curtis, I agree with you. The Republican politicians are just as much to blame. I mean, they're all to blame. They're all to blame at this point. McConnell does not want Trump to run again. McConnell wants Trump out of the party. He made that statement tonight, or at least I saw it a couple of hours ago. He actually made that statement. And it's, in my opinion, it's all of them at this point that are causing the problems for us. Something we need to overhaul. We need an overhaul. Now, Biden has stated that he does want to impeach Trump. He's, publicly stated this, but he said his problem is that he thinks it'll interfere with his appointment of public officials and his 100-day agenda. Because in his 100-day agenda, he's already talked about he's going to stop day one, going to stop construction of the wall, and then next he's going after gun control. And that's the thing that bothers me also the most. We're seeing free speech. I mean, it's almost gone, folks. Free speech is almost gone. I'm lucky to be here on YouTube tonight. It's just a matter of time because YouTube is owned by Google. Google owns YouTube. So this is going to be the next venue that they take down, or they're not going to take it down, but they're going to take down people who do not, say the things that they want us to say. You lost all your guns in a boating accident. I hear you. Or let me read. I'm going to read here some of the things from Biden's gun control. And this is it's really sort of disturbing. Right. One of Biden's advisors, one of his campaign person during the campaign, said, "We are actually the only campaign with a plan that supports mandatory buybacks of weapons of war. And then an assault weapon ban is very, very important, and we need to have it. But this only takes weapons of war off the streets in the future. It does nothing for weapons of war that are currently out there." And that's what they're talking about, is a gun buyback. So right here on Biden's, I'm going to post this too. So if anybody wants to read this article in full, because I'm going to paraphrase it. All right. But I'm going to point out some of the key points of some of the ones that really, get me. And one of the one is the mandatory buyback of what they call assault weapons and high capacity magazines. And it says Biden will institute a program to buy back weapons of war, as they call them on his website, currently on our streets. Well, I don't own any weapons of war. I own weapons that would fall into the categories they lay out, but these aren't weapons of war. This will give individuals who now possess assault weapons or high capacity magazines two options: sell the weapons to the government or register them under the National Firearms Act. The National Firearms Act is commonly known as NFA. It was passed back in 1938 originally, but it's been, modified, I guess you'd say, many, many times. And what the National Firearms Act, it actually encompasses is the National Firearms Act actually encompasses things such as automatic weapons, short-barreled rifles. A short-barreled rifle is a rifle that has a barrel longer or shorter than 16 inches. Short, sawed-off shotguns, basically. Weapons like that, silenced weapons or suppressed, I should say, weapons. They're going to, attempt to force a buyback on all these weapons or make you register them as NFA weapons. This is what happens when you go to register an NFA weapon. First of all, you cannot possess the weapon until your registration is approved. The average wait time for an NFA weapon is 8 months to 2 years. So that basically would mean, my best guess on that is I'm going to have to turn in my firearm. I'm going to have to submit an application. I'm going to have to pay a $200 application fee, or what they call the tax stamp. And then maybe if I pass the background check that they put me through, then maybe I would get that weapon back 8 months to 2 years from now. And you're talking about weapons that we already own. So they're talking one of two things: either a complete mandatory buyback, which basically means bring your guns here, and yeah, they'll pay us for them. I mean, if you take them to them, they'll pay for them, I'm sure. But in the same hand, they're taking all of our guns away, and then they're forcing people to apply for NFA tax stamps. That's not an easy application. It's not that hard, but it's so lengthy, and they do a very detailed background check, which is usually not a problem. But the fact is, they're going to take what you got, and they're going to make you wait to get it back if you can, and pay to get it back. And these are things we've already paid taxes to buy. Now, here's another thing that he says on his website. And it says, require background checks for all gun sales. Now, as it stands, most places, you're going to do a background check anyway. And this isn't really a big deal. But some states, will allow you to make person-to-person sales without a background check. And what they're wanting to do is expand this so that any firearm that you take to sell, maybe it's to your brother, maybe it's to your cousin, maybe it's to your mother, your son, whatever it's to, or whoever it's to, that they're going to have to go through a background check before they can take possession of that gun. And not just go through a background check, but then they're going to have to pay the background check fees. So another way for the government to make money, and another way for them to limit the transfer of guns, because they already have a record. I mean, as an ex-gun dealer, I'll tell you that every gun you buy from the gun store, those papers you sign, whether you got a concealed weapons permit and you don't have to go through the background check that day, or if you go through the background check that day, that paper you sign is always permanently kept on record. So they have a record of every gun that was manufactured, who it was originally sold to. So if I have 5 guns, and this is the problem, if I have 5 guns I bought 5 years ago, and I sold those guns for whatever reason to somebody I knew, when they come to confiscate them, they're going to come looking to me, want to know where those 5 guns I bought that came from the manufacturer are. So you can start to see the problems that this is going to cause, because if I can't show a record of where those guns went out of my possession, then I'm probably going to be guilty of a felony at that point. And this is getting it's already out of hand. It's getting really, really crazy. And there's one more thing he says on there that does bother me a lot. It bothers me just as much as the rest of it. He wants to reduce the stockpiling of weapons. In order to reduce the stockpiling of firearms, Biden supports legislation restricting the number of firearms an individual may purchase per month to 1. So no matter how much money you have to spend, no matter whether you're a collector, a firearms enthusiast, or, whatever, he wants to restrict it that we can only buy 1 firearm per month maximum. And, that's just wrong. I mean, we should be able to buy whatever we want. I understand some guns, I don't need a grenade launcher. I don't need a bazooka. But if I want an AR-15, I'm not out shooting anybody with that. And most people are not. As a matter of fact, rifles like that account for less deaths than knives do in the United States. I mean, much less deaths. It's absolutely, words can't describe. Now, also on the same, this is what he's putting out on his website. So this is Joe Biden's, official website. Where was it? He wants to stop the importation of firearms too. A lot of the guns that we buy, actually are imported from other countries, but he's wanting to stop the importation of firearms to go along with that. So basically what we're seeing is he wants to restrict us to, maybe revolvers if we're lucky, maybe hunting rifles, bolt action if we're lucky, but semi-autos, I believe, are going to be out the window. I believe that's going to be the first thing to go, because that's what they consider. Most of them think AR stands for assault rifle when it stands for Armalite. So, I mean, this is something it's coming fast. He's talking about executive orders on this his first 100 days in office. So it's not like we're worried about this 3-4 years from now. This is what's happening this year. This is what's happening by the end of this month. And it's going to continue through the next few months. It's really, really just absolutely crazy these days. All right, speaking of gun control, I just want to touch on something a little bit. I put up a poll last week and to see a couple of different polls. And one of them was asking which firearm would you rather have, listed for which firearm would you rather have in an SHTF scenario. And the Glock 17 won that with 62%, followed by the 1911 at 20%, the Smith & Wesson M&P 40 at 10%, and the SIG P232 at 8%. And the second question I had asked was for what type of ammunition or what caliber ammunition should you or would you prefer in a SHTF scenario? And the number one was 9mm at 56%, followed by 22 LR at 26%, 45 ACP at 7%, and 38 and 40 at 6% each. So that's people's preferences on that. And, it seems that the 9mm is a lot more popular than the other rounds. And 9mm is a good round. I like nines. I got two 1911s. One of them's in 9, one of them's in 45, and I like them both. And I have another 9 also. I also got the Smith & Wesson M&P 40. Yep, when they start coming after guns, they will start World War III. And that's the thing that we have to realize is that, and I think most people do, hopefully, is that when they do attempt to take our guns, all we got to do is look back at history and at World War II. And that was the real turning point there when firearms were basically banned except for people in the government. Then the people have no recourse. They have no means to fight back. And that's our means of self-defense, basically. Once they come for our guns, and they already are, but once they really make that move, then, that's the time in which a lot of people are going to have to make a decision. Yeah, 10mm. I like 10mm too. I like those a lot. The 40, the FBI actually started using the 10mm to begin with, but they said it had a little too much power. So Smith & Wesson came out with because it's the same diameter, 40 and 10, same diameter bullet. They came out with a smaller round, the 40 Smith & Wesson. And then that's when they switched over to it. So the 10mm was the predecessor to the 40 Smith & Wesson. Yeah, the 5.7 is pretty quick. All right. Now, one of the things that I really wanted to focus on in this video was, some of the other things we talked about, those are really important. But the reason I want to focus on this is because this is happening now. Let's think back to last Wednesday. How quickly did things escalate last Wednesday? How quickly did they escalate? I mean, at snap of a finger. It went from peaceful to all out, crazy in just a very, very short amount of time. And that's the point that I want to make here tonight is we don't have time to get ready. We need to be ready now. There are armed protests, according to the FBI and everywhere I look online. There are armed protests scheduled at every state capital starting this weekend, and some of them are starting tomorrow. As of right now, let me get these numbers right because I don't want to tell you any lies. All right, going on the Wednesday thing, so far 160 cases have been filed, 70 have been charged, and more are expected to be charged. The person who left the alleged pipe bomb was caught on camera, but was in a hoodie and a mask. And the FBI's only released one photo, but they say they have multiple more photos because it was a 5-minute walk from the RNC to the DNC. So they probably have a pretty good idea of, who that person was. But there's one thing, and that's right now there are currently more than 10,000 National Guard troops in D.C. 3,000 are going to be stationed outside the Capitol. 10,000 National Guard troops in D.C., 3,000 of them stationed outside the Capitol, with other channels that I watched today talking about mobilization in other states. The thing about that is that's more troops than we have in Afghanistan right now. So that's a major force to be on the streets of DC. And this is where we got to, and I'm not saying the National Guard's going to do anything to us, but I'm saying this is really turning into something right before our eyes. Because all it's going to take is, if there are armed protests, all it's going to take is one instigator to literally start a war in that general area. And that's what we really am going to have to be careful of this weekend. Yeah. I hear you, save yourself. Those plus P plus rounds are pretty strong. Yeah. Yeah, imagine a 1,000,000-man armed protest. Yeah, that would be something. And the reason I think that we're going to see a lot of trouble from this isn't necessarily going to be the patriots that are starting the trouble, but what's going to happen. Some states, it is not legal to open carry. And when people start showing up with firearms, what do y'all think what do you think is going to happen about that? What are your guesses on that? When people show up to the capital of a certain state with firearms, and firearms are you're not legally allowed to carry open carry in that state, that's going to be where we're going to see some, tense standoffs, some problems. And this is one of those things that, I'm glad that we're seeing protests. I wish we could make a political statement and make a change. I really wish we could. And I hope we still can. But I think this weekend we might very well see, things happen that we weren't counting on to happen. I don't think anybody expected this past Wednesday to go the way it did. And, this weekend, tomorrow maybe, because if they start voting on the articles of impeachment tomorrow at the House, something could, but there's supposed to be protests there tomorrow. But I really don't see that. I can see it closer to the weekend. The 16th, 17th, a lot of them are scheduled. And this is going to be, it's going to be interesting, is the only word I can think of right now, to see what happens, because there's a lot of people out there that are pretty upset right now. And I know I'm one of them. And the reason is, you got these news outlets that are sitting here making Wednesday. Now, I'm not condoning what happened, but I'm saying this. They say, well, how could they do that? Why would they do that? I'll tell you why they did that. It's because we watched that shit happen for a year on our TVs to our cities. We watched cities burn, and we watched politicians say it's okay. So why wasn't it okay for us to protest at the White House? Now, I'm not saying there should have been any violence. There should have been no violence. There should have been nobody got hurt. But we had every right to be there, just like anybody else this past year, that nobody has a right to burn down a building. Nobody has a right to do the things that happened this past summer, but the politicians condone that. And now we are insurgents, is what they're calling them, insurgents and terrorists. They're labeling Trump supporters as insurgents and terrorists. And, after we watched what we watched, and it's, sometimes we have to wonder what the solution is. I mean, there's a lot of people out there talking, do I think that martial law would be applied? I think it's a very good possibility we'll see that in some cities this weekend. If anything goes down, it wouldn't surprise me. And that's something I did want to touch on too, is if that does happen, if things do break off in some of these cities, then be prepared, because there's a very good chance that the governments in those cities will, at least in localized areas, cut the grid. They'll cut grid so that we lose power and we lose means of communication, and we can't see what's going on the TV. That gives them the freedom to do whatever they want to do to the protesters while we're in a blackout type of state. And I sort of believe that that's a very distinct possibility. That's why I urge everybody right now, make sure your car is full of gas. Make sure your bag is packed in case you need to. I'm going through later tonight and tomorrow. I'm inventorying all my preps, and I'm making sure my bags are ready in case I do need to go. I'd rather spend a few hours doing all that and not need it than the time come and I got to try and get things together. So really make sure that you have a plan If you're in a large city right now and you know a protest is going to be there, and if you're taking part in it, then you're going to be in it. But if you're not, make sure you have a plan what you're going to do if things do go bad. So just at the bare minimum, make sure you have enough food in your house for a couple of weeks and enough water in your house for a couple of weeks. Some alternative electricity items, maybe some small solar panels, battery chargers. Make sure your devices are charged, because if something does pop off, as we saw Wednesday, it's not going to happen. They're not going to come on the news and say 30 minutes from now, the power's going out. No, we're going to lose power. They're not going to say martial law is going to be declared 2 hours from now. They're going to say it's declared right now. So we want to definitely be ready, because I think this weekend is really looking like it might something very well could happen. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see, because unless we're one of the ones planning for something to happen, there's no way we're going to know it until we see it. That's the Real News Channel. That's a very good point. The Marxist Democrat want Trump supporters to get violent so they can pass their new homeland terror laws. And guess who the terrorists are? That's right, us. Anyone that wears a red shirt, anyone that has ever mentioned Trump on social media, because when Snowden come out and showed all the how the government was not just watching what we did, but recording it. Everything, every phone call you've made, every text you've made, every video I've made, everything I've done online, they have in a database, a huge database. So anybody that's took part in this any kind of way, we are going to be labeled as insurgents or a terrorist at that point. And that's what they're wanting to do. Because if we really look at it, and I'm not trying to break things up by class, but what I'm saying is a large portion of the Republican Party falls into the middle class. And through this whole COVID thing, it's the middle class that they've been shutting down through all this. They haven't been shutting down the $1 million companies, and they've been giving the people that don't, that haven't been working or didn't make much money, giving them much more unemployment than they were making. So they were benefiting more. And the people that were in the middle class were the ones that were really being hurt. And I'm not saying that's not really a Democrat or Republican thing. I probably shouldn't say that, but I'm just saying that most Republicans that I know fall into the middle class category. I know a lot of Democrats do too. So I didn't want to break it down like that. Yeah, Arliss, you might be right. This may not, there may be nothing. And this is a reality that we're going to really have to accept. There's so many videos out there that's saying, buy this, buy that, do this, do that. And, and in reality, we do have to accept the fact that we are in a situation we cannot control. We have no control over what's going to happen. The only thing we can do is be prepared and react to it. And when we react, we have to react swiftly and make swift decisions, and make decisions that'll keep our families safe and the ones we love safe. And we may have to make decisions that, entail a lot of sacrifices too. But this is something we have no control over right now. We're being controlled. We're being pushed. We're being manipulated. And we're being forced into a corner. Keisha, I think you're right. It does look like they want a civil war. It really does look like that's what they want, because they're splitting the country, and they've successfully done it. And they've done it pretty much down political lines. Anyone that would consider themselves a Democrat is now at odds with anyone that considers himself a Republican. They have split the nation by those political parties. There's not really any in between anymore. And even if I am a moderate, I'm just say, if I was a moderate, or if you were in between and, didn't really care either way, well, one of those parties is going to clump you in with the other one. It doesn't really matter what I believe right now. It matters what they believe and what party they push me towards. Yep. Any excuse to take guns. I noticed something on here. If y'all see me keep clicking over there like that, that's because on my first couple live streams, I didn't notice it. But I noticed that YouTube holds a lot of comments. They block it, and I have to go approve it. And I try to get them all, but sometimes I probably miss one. But anybody that mentions the word gun, or they say something negative about Democrats, I have to approve every single one of those. It's crazy. Let your morals be your guide, Grumpy. Amen. Any thoughts about the emergency broadcast system and phone update? Oh, wow. They just, hold on. I just lost a couple comments. I lost that comment, something about the emergency broadcasting system. Cheap Bayo things can't be beat. Yeah. And another good thing too is a CB radio. You know, it's not as popular, and you can get portable handheld models. I love the ham radio. You know, I love all those. The CB is just so simple to use, and a lot of people have them. A lot of people have them. Yeah, that's a good point. If things really do hit the fan, cell phone might be something you might want to consider ditching. And Mike, they censoring all your comments, and I don't know why. That's just the way they are on here on Facebook, YouTube, whatever. That's true. Far from ordinary. There are advantages to having the ham radio, and that's that most ham radios give you access to your regular radio stations, to your emergency broadcast stations, to your of course, all the higher frequency ham channels and all that. So yeah, it does give you a broader range of communication. It truly does. But a ham radio for most people is going to be difficult to pick up and just figure out without an instruction book and, a little bit of help. I know the first one I used, it took me a little while. I didn't just pick it up like a CB. You just turn on the channel, you're talking away, you're done, you're ready to go. But on the ham, you have to put in a little more time and effort to get used to it. But once you do, it does open up a bigger range of communications for you and multiple options at that point. Genji, the only thing you need is communication solution. Have you tried the CB or the hams? Yeah, that's a good point there. Mike, comms are useless without the right frequency or antenna. That is a disadvantage of ham. There are so many frequencies. I could literally spend all day long tuning through them. If I don't have the exact right one, then, it could take me weeks to actually find find somebody, on there. And with a CB, another good point on that is without an antenna, you're not getting anywhere with it. So there's drawbacks to each one of them. They're both low cost. You can get a pretty decent set of ham or a decent set of hams for less than $50, and you can definitely get a CB for about $50. But you're going to want to get an antenna and a power supply for that. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Joey. Yeah, join a ham club. Normally less than $20 a year. Thoughts on Julio? Thoughts on Biden's gun laws he wants to pass? We was talking about this a second ago, man. My thoughts on it, I think that it is absolutely, it's crazy. He's literally wanting to do mandatory buybacks on our guns. And a mandatory buyback is just another word for confiscation. They're just giving us a little compensation for it. It makes us feel better about it. Well, they bought it back. No, they took it and they gave me some money, so I just go home. But that's what they're wanting to do. And not just that, before the buybacks, I don't see a buyback happening in the first 2 or 3 months. What I see happening in the first 2 or 3 months is suddenly anything over a 5-round magazine is going to be illegal. You're going to have to turn them in. Or at first they'll stop the manufacture of them. Then you'll have to start turning in your magazines to your local police department. Then they're going to start pushing the registration to where certain type of firearms have to be registered as NFA. And then they're going to enforce the buybacks. It's going to, before the end of the year, if we make it that long, before the end of the year, they're going to have our guns if something doesn't stop them from getting our guns. I wonder how much they offer you for a gun. I don't know. I know I got a lot of money tied up in mine, and I seriously doubt they're going to give me the money I got tied up in my ARs. I always like to build my own, and as far as assemble them, I guess I should say, not really build it, but assemble it. And I use the best parts that I can afford. Yeah, welcome to California and New York now. Yeah, in California, it's been quite a while that you guys haven't been able to have anything over 5-round magazines, right? I hope you're right, Curtis. I hope there are enough Democrats. I mean, I'll agree. There are a lot of Democrats that support the Second Amendment, especially from like some of the Midwest states and all, because, the Second Amendment is pretty popular. And I think overall, the American public supports the Second Amendment. I think the majority of it is just this far left that seems to think that taking our guns is going to enable them control over us. And in a way, it would. I hear you, camping. I can't really say that, but yeah, camping alive. Prepper trucking. Possible false flag on Inauguration Day. I can see that too. I sort of have my thoughts as to Wednesday being somewhat of a false flag or being instigated. Good evening, James. And the reason I say that is because it just doesn't follow. There have been a lot of Trump protests. There have been a lot of Trump rallies, because we've always called them rallies, not really protests. And this is the first one that ever went even anywhere close to what this one did. All of the other ones that they talked about there was violence at, that was when people were walking home from the protest and were being attacked by these groups like BLM and Antifa were attacking them. "16-foot antenna on your roof. Save yourselves." I hear you. 250 miles away. See, that's what I'm talking about. I've actually got a military, got it from an old military surplus store that hooks right up to my antenna. I mean, my CB. I can connect it with a coaxial. And I haven't tried it out here yet, but I've been wanting to try it out. And that's something I need to do. Arliss, yes, I agree. This very well may be the beginning of the tribulation. It could be further along in it than we think. Oh, really? You heard Biden had a bad reaction to the second dose of the vaccine. Yeah, James, it's going to get worse. And that's something that there's no denying that. I'd love to be able to say that, things are going to work out in a month or two, but yeah, it's going downhill from here. It's going downhill for people like us, just the average people trying to make a living, trying to live a decent life, trying to raise their families, trying to, just do the right thing. Basically, it's going downhill for us. How much worse do you think it's going to be if Kamala Harris takes over, if something happens to Biden? I think that is absolutely inevitable. I think she will be, assuming that things keep going, assuming our nation keeps going, I think she will be president within a year because something will happen to Biden. And that will put her and I believe Nancy Pelosi as vice president. Can you imagine that? I mean, Biden is far enough left, but he's not as far left as a lot of the Democrats are up there on Capitol Hill right now. He's not that far left as a lot of them. He's a little more in the middle than a lot of the ones that are up there when you start talking about like AOC and ones like that. But with him gone, Kamala Harris, she is very far left. She's going to take your guns, all of our guns, and she'd probably take our knives if she could. And I think it would be much worse. I think it would be just a total overnight change of this nation. Right. We're 1 year into the trib, 7 more to go. I agree. I think we're there too. Yeah, Michael, that's true. Food is going to be something important. And no matter what happens this weekend, all right, this is one of the things that we do have to look at is let's say some things break off this weekend. There's a lot of violence, there's a lot of protests, and even martial law gets, called in some places. Then that's still going to leave us to survive right here in our homes. Because I mean, I got COVID. I can't go to no protest, not with a good conscience, you know. So, and there's not one near me anyway. But so, I mean, I'm sort of stuck here. And like a lot of other people, you're stuck in your home. If this martial law was to go down, then food is going to be an extremely important factor. Hopefully we all got enough weapons and ammo. You know, I mean, that's something that I know I've been gathering for years, and I think a lot of y'all have too. But food is something you can't have enough of. What if on inauguration day, Trump arrests them for the world to see? Well, that would be something, wouldn't it? If all the things that we've been hearing about, you know, all this Jeffrey Epstein stuff, all the other things we've been hearing. I mean, we could go on for hours about all that. That would be something else to see. That would definitely be something else to see. Jim, that's good. What about the states that are passing bills not to accept federal legislation about the Second Amendment? And I think they should. You know, the Second Amendment, this is what really bothers me about our federal government. Years ago, I mean, you know, when the nation was first formed, the federal government really served the purpose of defending the nation, of keeping a standing army to defend the nation, and to assist states in resolving disputes, and to assist states, you know, financially and things like that. They were never designed to run our everyday life, to tell us what we could own in our homes and what we couldn't, what kind of car we could drive and what we couldn't. And they're trying to tell us that too with the new Green New Deal. You won't have a gasoline burning engine probably in 10 years if things were to last that long. But the federal government has more than overstepped its bounds in the last 20 or 30 years, but it's gotten so much worse. For those that's been around a while, think about the 70s, the 80s, and even the 90s, how things were then and how slowly things seem to develop. But as soon as the internet came along in the early to mid 90s, when it really started coming into the households a lot, look at how things have changed since then. Free men don't ask permission. I hear you. Live free or die. So Missouri is passing one of those legislation. I see that. That's good. They shut Trump down on social media. He'll probably end up using emergency services to inform us of martial law. Yeah. Commentator. I like that. I like that name. Nancy's laptop was stolen. Nancy Pelosi's laptop was stolen. All right. Now, you think about this, okay? Somebody storms the Capitol. We have, storming the Capitol building up there, storming the Senate. Are they going to, I mean, if this is just a random protester doing this, are they going to have the knowledge of where is Nancy Pelosi's laptop? Where are these other laptops? And hit exactly specific targets like that? That's why I'm saying it wasn't, I don't want to say false flag, but it wasn't just a Trump protest rally that got out of hand. There was a lot more being orchestrated there. There was a lot more leading the way so that, things could happen. Give me liberty, give me death. That's right. It is in God's hands, Angel. Yeah, or wear a buffalo headdress on the floor. Yeah, that guy was what was he? He was one of the QAnon, right? QAnon was what the guy with the buffalo headdress on and like the fur jacket. Blue, yeah, I believe you. The world is laughing at the USA right now, and that's what really kills me. That's what really kills me. I never in my life, I mean, from my military days and through my years until now, I never thought I would say anything to the effect like, it's almost embarrassing to look at the way that our country is conducting itself, to look at the way the government is conducting itself right now. It's actually embarrassing. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. This is one of the things that's going to make things so much more difficult in these next few days is is we've already seen the censorship, and we've already seen that. We've seen sites shut down. We've seen Trump lose his accounts. We've seen other accounts get shut down. Hey, they even cut my video off halfway through last week, and I'm nobody compared to them. So, I mean, I've seen a lot of I was watching a new video today, live stream, that got cut off too. So and it's not my internet connection. I got pretty good internet, but it's this censorship. I mean, if they prevent us from truly knowing what's going on just in the next county over, then we're at a loss right there. We're at a complete loss. And it's going to make it very hard for us to coordinate any type of effort. Yeah, unorthodox. You're probably right. Every government spy agency was in that crowd, I'm sure. Yep. You're welcome, Jim. You an NC, Michael? I hear you. Yeah, I'm trying to make my way back down to South Carolina pretty soon myself. Yeah, it's gonna be really a really trying weekend. And I suggest, honestly, everybody, please, make sure that your vehicle is filled up with gas. Make sure to keep your weapons at the ready. Clean your guns, get them ready. Make sure you got a good go bag. Make sure your family understands your plan. And if you're by yourself, make sure you have a plan, because if things do get out of hand, we're not going to have 30 minutes to an hour to make a decision. It's going to be a split-second decision. Do you leave or do you stay? And that decision could very well impact, what the rest of your life is going to be. And it's this I think this could be a very pivotal week for us. Maybe not. Maybe nothing will happen. Maybe it'll just be nothing. And I don't want to see, people killing people, just like nobody does. But this is something that we really need to be focused on this weekend, and we need to focus on this coming up week, because this is the time that's gonna really possibly lead to something big. I've been hearing, a lot of other channels talk about it. A lot of things I've been reading. It's just, there's too much going on just to put it bluntly, there's too much going on for nothing to happen. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And one other thing too about the impeachment. One other thing about the impeachment. Now, I wish I was coming home this weekend, baby. My wife's there. But another thing about the impeachment is they're trying to push through. Now, if they do impeach him, if they do convict in the Senate, they're also trying to push through with the second conviction that would bar him from running from public office again. They're trying to strip him of all of the rights that are given to the ex-presidents, which means, he wouldn't have a travel allowance. He wouldn't have, these allowances that, because ex-presidents still get a lot of money. They still get a lot of money. But the most important thing is he won't have Secret Service protection anymore. So that they're actually trying to strip him of all those protections and all those rights that every single president in the United States had, even the ones that resigned before, even the worst ones. So that's something. And you think about Iran actually came out on Twitter and said, once Trump is out of office, that his days are numbered. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that's basically what they said. Now, that tweet was allowed. Okay, that tweet's allowed. So that's not, I guess that's not inciting violence, but they're threatening the president of the United States. Along with, they're basically threatening the United States, saying that if Biden doesn't soften up the restrictions on them, that, we can pretty much expect war. And that's the same thing we're hearing from North Korea right now too. North Korea is saying that if we don't ease the sanctions on them, that they're going to further their development of long-range weapons and, better technology. And they probably will. I pretty much assume that we're going to ease those restrictions, and those countries are going to go into full production of whatever they want to produce at that point. So even if we don't see, anything happen soon, we're going to see something happen from those two countries pretty soon. It doesn't take an entire arsenal like the United States nuclear arsenal to start a nuclear war. It takes one nuke from a country like Iran or North Korea. If they strategically put it somewhere in Europe, knowing that there will be nukes launched back, and it just steamrolls from there. So we're looking at a very, very trying year. But I want to focus in on this next coming up week and a half, because I believe this is going to be an extremely difficult time. Yes, Pence did not invoke the 25th. They tried to make him. The House tried to make him, but he didn't invoke it. Unless it's happened in the last few minutes, as far as I know, he did not invoke it. So, neighborhood defense forces, you're right, unorthodox. That is an extremely important subject. For those that live in neighborhoods, for those that live way out in the country, it's not quite as relevant because you're basically in a secluded area. But those in urban areas, urban defense forces could make the difference between life and death. You definitely going to need a group if you're in a populated area, because groups are going to come at you. And if you're not part of a group that's going to help defend you, then it's going to be extremely difficult, maybe even not survivable. Yeah, a nuke over Kansas at the right altitude is a big problem. Nationwide EMP, pretty much. If it's a 10 megaton or bigger, then yeah, it could affect the entire nation, EMP wise. Do you even know your neighbors? Bada boom. Hey, I got to admit, up here in Michigan, I don't know many of my neighbors. And as much as I talk about group survival, that's actually a terrible thing to admit, but I'm not going to sit here and lie about it either. I know a couple of them, but I don't know. It just seems like people sort of keep to themselves a little more than down south. I'm used to people just, being a lot more friendly down there. Yeah, Major Ron, where's that stimulus at? A little news on that. The stimulus have to be out by Friday. So I haven't gotten mine yet, and I guess Major Ron, you hadn't got yours yet either. Taking that. And hey, Jen, that's great. And the stimulus by the government's own deadline have to be sent out by this Friday, the 15th. So that is good news if we're going to get one. But they also put a little clause in there that said not everybody would get it. Even though you're entitled to it, we still might not get it and might have to file a credit on our tax return, which will probably be delayed for some reason. Our taxes every year, it seems like it takes longer and longer to get them back. But, yeah, hopefully we'll all get our stimuluses by Friday. All right, prepper trucking. Yeah, I started looking at those. I just got a little sidetracked today, and I wasn't able to look at all of them. But I'm gonna check all the rest of them out in the morning, man. Thanks a lot for sending me that stuff. Appreciate it. Well, all right, y'all. We've been going for about an hour. Are there any questions? Really, something that sticks out that maybe we can touch on before we get out of here? I, yeah. Well, all right, y'all. I really do, appreciate y'all listening to me tonight. We talked about some pretty deep subjects because this is right now we're facing things that this country never really has faced before. Even considering the first revolution, it really didn't go down the way it's going down right now, because we are a country and now we're divided against each other. People that live here, people that have lived here for decades, centuries, and civil war basically, and that's what they're trying. That's what they're trying to start, and it looks like they're doing a pretty good job of it. All right, you have an important comment to make. All right. You're welcome. Wait. Southwest NC Mountains there. Save yourself. I hear you. I love the mountains. You ever pan for gold up there? I used to pan for gold in that area a lot around the mountains up in Carolina too. Georgia, down in Georgia there. No, Jonathan, a blackout in Iran. I knew about a blackout, two other blackouts. I think it was Pakistan and Italy. So I didn't hear about a blackout in Iran. Oh, and there's one other thing too. For those y'all know that I said I had partnered with My Patriot Food Supply. They want me to make commercials for them, right? So I actually made my first commercial that they're going to be showing, and I'm going to put it on the channel here when I get done with the live stream. Just let me know what you think about it. Put a little time into it. Hopefully hopefully it looks pretty good and it looks professional. What are my thoughts on income tax this year? Oh man, that sort of got me wondering too, because with everything that's going on, because Biden's really wanting to jump into undoing all the tax cuts that Trump had gave. It wouldn't surprise me to see, with this coronavirus and all this stuff going on, it wouldn't surprise me to see the taxes get delayed this year. Hopefully I'm really wrong about that, because I like to get my tax money back, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. I'm definitely not going to put my tax money in my budget this year. When I get it, it's hopefully extra money. And severe food shortages are coming this year. Yes, we're already seeing them up here. And just take note when you go to the grocery store. At least in my area, I know when I go in there that every week I go in, it's a little bit emptier every week, just a little bit emptier. And another month or two of that, and it's going to be pretty empty. Traveling from state to state, Mary, I believe that's going to be restricted very soon. And if things were to go south this weekend, then I do believe that we could see some restrictions on that. That's because they sent those letters out a while back. I got one. I know a lot of other people got one that said you're allowed to travel state to state, but not everybody got one. Only people that worked for major corporations got one. So I expect that to, if there's a medical reason, I would think that you should be able to get some type of exemption then at that point. Okay. Well, all right, everybody. Enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for watching tonight. Gonna do another one later on this week. And I also got a couple videos that I've been meaning to put out, and check out that commercial I did and see what you think about it. And I hope everybody has a really good night. Hope you have a good next couple of days, and just keep an eye on the news and, be ready. Watch your six. Thanks a lot for watching, y'all. God bless. And for now, Serious Survivor out.